There was a boy once, Liam. He didn't come into this world damaged. He wasn't born with anger or confusion or emptiness. No, he began like any other child, eyes full of wonder, questions spilling from his mouth, dreaming in vivid shades of possibility. But the world had no space for that softness. His father would stumble in late, loud and burning with fury. His mother would vanish into quiet. Liam learned to move lightly through the house, tracing the groans of the floor like hidden traps. The dinner table became a battlefield. Words cut deeper than knives, and still, no one ever apologized. But what truly broke Liam wasn't only the pain itself, it was the pretending that followed, the silence, the fake laughter in front of others, the way no one ever stopped to say, "Something isn't right here." That denial of truth became its own form of poison. You see, the human mind can endure much, but it cannot remain untouched. Trauma doesn't just rest in memory, it settles into the flesh. It twists the nerves, reshapes perception, and quietly alters how a person views the world, the people around them, and most painfully, themselves. It teaches a child that safety is a lie, worth is conditional, and existence is uncertain. And as the years passed, the boy grew, and the mask grew with him. Liam became likable, witty, the kind of person who could make anyone feel seen. He studied people like mirrors, shifting shape to reflect what they wanted to see. He perfected the performance. Yet beneath it all, there was nothing, just an echo in an empty room, walls still intact, but the life inside burned away. That's the quiet ruin of unhealed trauma. It divides the self in two. Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest tragedy of a family is the unlived lives of the parents." Liam carried that tragedy in his bones. Not merely through blood, but through silence, repression, and the frozen inheritance of emotional absence. Liam didn't lose himself all at once. It happened slowly, almost quietly. First came the sleepless nights, that constant hum of unease, the sense that something was wrong even when life looked right. Then crept in the suspicion, the anger, the self-loathing. Trust became impossible. Even with himself, every relationship felt like walking through a minefield. He'd push people away, then beg them not to leave. Love turned into a war where he fought on both sides, the defender and the destroyer. He went to therapy once, confessed that he felt nothing anymore, that his dreams had stopped making sense, that some mornings he'd stare into the mirror and not know the man looking back. They called it anxiety, depression, but those words never reached the real wound. The buried ache Liam never learned to name. Because when trauma goes unspoken, it doesn't fade. It hides, it rots, it waits. And one day, it surfaces maybe as a breakdown, an addiction, or the quiet withdrawal of someone who once lit up every room. Liam began talking to himself, not just stray thoughts, but full conversations, arguments, pleas. He'd pass mirrors without flinching, eyes hollow. He carried a notebook everywhere, filling its pages with fragments that made sense only to him. People said he'd changed, but he hadn't. He was simply too tired to pretend anymore. That's the secret no one tells you about losing your mind. It isn't insanity, it's surrender. It's the spirit finally laying down its armor. When a person spends a lifetime burying pain, fear, and memory, something inside eventually splits. Because the mind isn't mechanical, it's delicate, woven from emotion, memory, and meaning. And when too much of that weave is soaked in sorrow and silence, it begins to unravel. Liam began to trust the voices. He started noticing signs where none existed. He called it connection. He believed the universe was speaking to him not in symbols or poetry, but in direct, deliberate messages. A song on the radio, a stranger's passing look, the flicker of a streetlight, all became part of some grand design. But what was really happening? His mind, desperate for structure, was weaving order from the ruins. It was trying to give meaning to what had never been healed. That's the cruelty of buried trauma. It refuses to stay buried. It won't let you rest or release. It wears the mask of fear, fury, or even revelation. But beneath it all, there's still that same small voice crying out, "Please see me. Please save me. Please help me." But by that point, it was already too late. The world doesn't understand madness. It fears it, isolates it, turns it into a warning label. And Liam, like countless others, became another story whispered in pity, another headline, another what happened to him. He didn't lose his mind because he was fragile. He broke because he held everything together for far too long. Some call it insanity, but Jung used another word: individuation, the painful becoming of one's whole self by confronting the shadow within. Yet for Liam, it wasn't transcendence. It was suffocation. It was like sinking beneath something vast and ancient and realizing it has your face. Something spoke to him, not in sentences, but in signs, broken flashes, and muffled cries behind closed doors. Because here's the truth: you don't lose your mind all at once. It unravels slowly, like a thin crack spreading across glass. From the outside, they say he snapped, but they never saw the quiet before the storm, the unseen nights, the hollow hours, the moments when no one was watching. When you bury the past, you don't erase it, you replicate it. Unhealed pain becomes a ghost, and ghosts don't vanish, they linger. Liam wasn't haunted by memories alone. He carried the dense weight of years steeped in neglect, confusion, guilt, and unspoken sorrow. Every silence he swallowed as a child echoed back as a scream in adulthood. This is where the border between sanity and collapse begins to blur. In psychology, we speak of the false self, the identity forged to endure, not to live, not to grow, but simply to survive. This self smiles on command, says what's expected, and hides the truth so deeply that even you forget it exists. But the truth, it never forgets you. Eventually, the mask gives way. The facade can't carry the weight any longer. And when it splinters, what remains? Only the shadow, the part you spent years outrunning. The fury you swore wasn't yours. The sorrow you dismissed as weakness. The quiet voice whispering, "You were never loved in the way you needed." This is what true madness is: not disease, not possession, not chaos. It's the breaking point of the human soul beneath the pressure of performance. Madness is not evil, it's rebellion. It's the final cry of a mind that's been muted for far too long. And in a strange way, collapse can be a doorway. Because when everything falls apart, the lies, the masks, the illusions, and nothing makes sense anymore, you're finally left holding the one thing that can set you free: the truth. But truth is never gentle. Liam's truth was this: he was mistreated, forgotten, unseen. The world never met the real him. And for years, he told himself it didn't matter. But it did. It always did. Carl Jung once said that healing begins when the unconscious becomes conscious, that the path to wholeness starts the moment you stop running from your shadow and dare to face it. But here's the cruel truth: facing your past means reopening everything you've spent your life trying not to feel. And that's terrifying, because beneath the numbness, beneath the chaos, lies something even more fragile: vulnerability. To step into your own shadow, you must soften again. You must allow yourself to mourn. And mourning is its own kind of dying. Liam began to write, not to understand, not even to recover, but simply to release. The pages became wild, scattered notes, sketches, and sometimes a single sentence scrawled over and over. "I didn't deserve this." That sentence didn't bring peace, it brought permission. Permission to feel anger, to feel grief, to feel at all. And in that, he uncovered something long buried: hope. Healing doesn't start with positivity or discipline. It starts with truth, and truth begins in pain. Liam returned to therapy, but this time, he didn't perform. He didn't reach for insight or meaning. He just cried for the boy who carried too much, for the man who never felt safe, for the madness that finally made sense once he stopped running from it. He was never cured, but he wasn't lost anymore. Liam had come to understand that madness was never the enemy. It was a signal, a desperate call from the pieces of himself he had long abandoned. And when he finally let them speak, they didn't destroy him, they embraced him. Because at last, he was listening. If you've ever felt like you're unraveling, if the world feels too heavy and you feel too much, hear this: you're not broken, you're hidden. Healing isn't about becoming someone else. It's about uncovering who you were before the pain made you forget. Where do you begin? Begin with stillness, not the hollow quiet of avoidance, but the sacred quiet of awareness. Write, cry, walk, scream, but do it awake. Do it without apology.